In this video, I'd like to talk about how to convert percents to decimals. So we have this starting problem, 72%, and we want to be able to rewrite this as some type of decimal. Now, to actually approach these problems, I would recommend starting with the word percent. So let me rewrite that, percent, and you can essentially break it up into two roots here. Per being one and cent being the other. Now, per usually is seen in the context of division. For instance, miles per hour. Let's say liters per kilogram. Anytime you have a rate, anytime you have some kind of fraction, a ratio comparing two different objects, you tend to use this word per. So this means divide or divide by. So when you see miles per hour, it means take the number of miles you drive and divide them by the number of hours that it took you to drive those. So per just means divide, but the root word for cent, if you expand it, you can think of century, centennial, how many cents are in a dollar. But I do believe it's a Latin word or a Latin root word meaning 100. So when you see the word percent, it literally just means divide by 100. So 72% just means 72 divided by 100. So I'll rewrite that. Let me use a different color here. We have 72 divided by 100. Or in other words, you have 72 hundredths. So when we mark out our places, here's the hundredths, here's the tenths. So when I put 72, this just means 72 hundredths. Now, if you want to actually carry out long division, you can do that. But the net result is that when you find a percent of something, when you rewrite it as division by 100, you're just moving that decimal place twice. So the overall pattern that you're going to see with these is, let's say you have 64%. When converting, you just move that decimal twice because this is 64 over 100, or 64 hundredths, which is 0.64. So in all of these cases, you just move the decimal twice. Now, let's look at some different example problems. So when you see 159%, this is 159 divided by 100, or 159 hundredths. So when we put in our decimal places here, this is the hundredths, so the 9 goes there, and then the numbers just kind of fill out. This is a 5 and this is a 1. But 159 hundredths is the same thing as 1.59. And again, if you really want, you can carry out this long division. That's okay. You just need to put in your decimal places here. And 100 goes into 159. It just goes in one time. And then you can find the remainder. So 59, you carry down a 0 here. So that means the decimal has to go up. And 100 goes into 590. It goes into that 5 times. Find the remainder, which is 90. You carry down another 0. And 100 goes into 900 9 whole times. So you would stop after that because the remainder is 0. So you get the same answer when you do the long division, but in practice, it's just much easier to think it through in terms of how many hundredths you have. And when you're dividing by 100, however big the number is up here, that's how many hundredths you have. So in this case, 159 of those hundredths. So you start with your hundredths place, you put the last digit, the 9, in that hundredths place, then you just fill them out accordingly. So if you wanted to see another one with this method, let's say you have 2784%. So percent means divide by 100. So you have 2,784 hundredths. So I'll put my decimal, my hundredths place. So I'm going to put the 4 there. And then the 8 goes there, the 7 will be in the next one, and the 2 in the next one. So this is the same thing as 27.84, or 27 and 84 hundredths. So either way you want to think about it. But ultimately, what you want to remember is that when you're converting from percent to decimal, that you just move that decimal place twice. because notice now it's 2 places over. So that's always going to be the theme. Now let's just look at 1 or 2 more examples just so that you fully understand this. Let's say you have 6%. So we'll write 6 divided by 100 because that's what percent means. And so this is 6 hundredths. So I'll write out my hundredths place right here, and I'll just put a 6 there. Now there are no tenths. You could think of it as 0.6 over 100. But we just have those 6 hundredths, and there's nothing else. So this just becomes 0.06. But it worked the same way. You still started with 6% and then moved the decimal twice. It's just now you have to fill in a decimal. You have to fill in a 0 there. So let's just do one more problem, a little bit more challenging. Let's say we have a percent with a decimal. Let's say we have 7.81%. So we'll first write this, division by 100. So 7.81 divided by 100. So this one's a little bit more challenging because you have just over 7 hundredths. Now, one thing you could do is get rid of the decimal here. So multiply top and bottom by 100. So that makes this top number 781. And then I just added 2 zeros to this one, so you get 10,000. And so you have 781 10,000ths. So start by putting in your places, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So the 1 from 781 goes here, because that's 10,000ths. So 1 over 10,000ths. Place is right there, and then the 8 and the 7 follow, and there's nothing here, so you can just put a 0. So this is 0.0781. Now, if this was confusing, this just kind of explains why this is the answer. But like I said, in practice, when changing from this percentage to a decimal, all you have to do is move the decimal place. So you just move it once, twice to the left. Changing a percent to a decimal, the number always becomes smaller. Because think about it, 100% is just 100 divided by 100, which is 1, or 1.00. So when changing from percent to decimal, the number is always being divided by 100. So it's always going to get smaller. So you shouldn't end up with something bigger than 7.81. That should be your intuition, your way to check. Now, if you end up with something bigger, that just tells you you probably moved the decimal the wrong place or in the wrong direction. So we move the decimal to the left here. You can put a 0 in there. So 0.0781. And you get the same answer. It's just this way is quicker. But this way tends to be more memorization. So make sure you understand this longer process of rewriting percent as division by 100 and working from there.